Ross Morgan, welcome to the show.
Cheers, man. Good to be here. Happy to see
Great.
you.
Likewise. Great to see you. Now, we've got so much to get into today, but I just want to give a bit of background for those watching. Um, Now, I actually know you from I was thinking about this earlier, roughly about 4 years ago, I believe.
I
We
think it was
bumped into,
free.
was it three?
Yeah, in Granada, wasn't it?
Exactly, in Spain. And we bumped into each other very randomly. I was in Spain at the time, visiting a few cities. I was seeing a girl at the time there, so just traveling around with her. And I think we met you and your friends in a bar or restaurant, if I'm not
Do you know
mistaken.
what? I actually can't remember. I remember I was staying at this hostel and I met this girl, Miah,
Yeah, yeah,
Miah and her friend Bortek, and
yeah,
I think they knew you,
yeah.
and then you and Margo. It was Margo, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Were having like some drinks around yours, and I kind of ended up just getting invited around as well. I'm pretty sure that's how it happened, but
Yeah, no, it was such a chill holiday. I have some great memories from that holiday. I think I was there for about a couple of weeks, but we all kind of hung around after that. We kind of formed a
yeah.
nice little group. We chilled out a few times, which is really cool. Um, so yeah, that's how we initially met, and then since then we haven't really connected up until about a few days ago. And I know you're really into traveling. You've traveled quite a few countries since that Spain trip. So can we start
Uh,
there?
yeah, I've
Where you
literally been
traveled?
to like, I think I've been to 30 countries since I met you.
Jesus, 30
Yeah, like,
countries.
so actually, it's kind of funny. Like, I remember I moved to Spain with my ex-girlfriend. She was teaching English as a foreign language, and she
Yeah.
ended up in Madrid. And like, lovely girl now, but it just didn't like work out. And I just, yeah, 4 months in, I was like, nah. So I just left, and my friends had a stag do in Barcelona in like 6 weeks' time. So I
Right.
was like, I can either go home
Yeah.
or I can just travel around Spain and like meet him in Barcelona. So obviously, like the second option was the best one. So I went with that, and like Granada was my first stop. And like I was literally traveling around with like a massive suitcase, a small suitcase, a bag, like a couple carrier bags. Like I had like my whole all of my possessions with me, and I just started like traveling around Spain. And like yeah, that was my first time really like going around hostels and meeting new people and just like traveling on my own. And
Yeah.
yeah, you guys were like the first people I hung out with on that.
Yeah, no, it was a cool trip. I have some great memories. And I want to start by talking about some very interesting words that you mentioned, because we spoke a couple of days ago over email. And I asked you to give me a few insights about not just what you've been up to over the last few years, but a bit about you. And you came back with an amazing set of responses. So, firstly, thank you for being so detailed. I really appreciate that. And one really interesting thing you said about yourself was you're someone who is self-aware, you're level-headed, you're well-intentioned, but at the same time you recognized two traits in you which are stubborn and egotistical. And I find that really interesting because I'm not sure of what your views are on this, but I actually think we all need a little bit of egotistical in us. And I think being egotistical has a bit of a bad rep. I think we need a bit of that in our lives in order to try and get to where we're trying to get to, right?
Yeah.
So we need to be somewhat selfish in that respect. So I was intrigued just to get your views on that. How have you found managing that side to you?
So I like almost I kind of like I've learned to manage my ego so well now, but
Yeah,
it's like sometimes I want to like jump back into getting a little bit petty about things. So I have like something to prove so I can like use my ego to drive me forwards. So like yeah, I kind of I like ego for the drive it gives you. Sometimes so I've said this to some of my clients before, but like I train people. I used before coronavirus, I used to train people in groups of 8, and because I'm egotistical, my goal with like my group training system was I'm going to get better results than 90% of the personal trainers can get in this town
yeah,
one on one. Like I'm going to train 8 people at once and do it better than they can do one person at once.
yeah,
Like that's pure ego. And like whenever, so I'm happy for someone when they get good results and they like have better energy and they're more confident and like they're just feeling absolutely amazing. But like some people will be like, oh, I'm so glad I helped that person. Whereas I'm like, ah, look at me getting like that great result. Like, do you know what I mean? So like my ego drove me to work so hard at like educating myself to such a high level. And was it so I could help people? Yeah. But like honestly, I think I get driven more by getting a result out of someone to like satisfy my ego than it's.
Yeah.
I love that it helps people, but honestly, I think what drives me more is the fact that um, it's just 100% for my ego and just being good at what I do. I think I think everyone likes to be good at what they do, and having an ego can just drive you to be better at it, so you can be like, "Ah, look at me," sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I let my ego take over where it serves me, but then other times I like recognize it and I manage it. So like on the flip side, I had a lot of shoulder injuries, and I used to train. I used to train from this place where this guy Chris Speed used to train from, and he got bronze in like British nationals of weightlifting, and he could train like 3 times a day. He was an absolute beast, and he was just incredible. And then I had all these shoulder issues, and I'm doing these like small little movements, like just to rehab my shoulder. And my ego would like see him just like absolutely smashing it, see the other trainers in the gym smashing it. And I'm just there doing like my little rehabby exercises. I can hardly lift anything. I'm weak as anything because I had shoulder issues for years. And
Right.
like at one point, that stopped me from training as a personal trainer for like 6 months because it just upset me too much because I let my ego get in the way of that. But I, like I say, self-aware, I realized that and I just took it back. And where my ego didn't serve me, I just like put it to one side.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And you touched on something just there about an injury. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about for a few minutes. Now, I find it really interesting. Through our email exchanges, you mentioned that you had a very serious knee injury in 2012, I believe. And that kind of was a start of an incredible journey for you because initially, unfortunately, you were hospitalized for a period of time. You went through a lot of issues, your health deteriorated, and that was a kickstart for you, wasn't it? It was a catalyst for you to say, okay, what's happened has happened, but now I want to use this experience to kind of catapult myself to another level with your health and fitness. But interestingly, you took a route towards that, which later turned out not to be the right thing. Did you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So basically, what happened was I remember I injured my knee playing football, and I went up for a header, and I just landed really wonky, and yeah, I did some serious ligament damage there. I remember going to like a walk-in center,
Yeah.
and they said, "Oh, you'll be all right after a couple of weeks," and I just wasn't. And I remember I went over on my knee like a bunch of times, and then like the straw that broke the camel's back was I remember I was out in Birmingham on a night out, and I was like 22 at the time, so I was just like two-stepping, loving life, like just yeah, cutting some shapes and just downing a bunch of Jaeger bombs. And I remember throwing some shapes and my knee literally just buckled from under me. And it was like, I don't know, it was like half one or two-ish. And I grabbed my friend like limping over to the bar. I'm like, mate, I'm gonna have to go. And he was like, oh, I think like it was like a big group of us. And he was like, oh, I think everyone's pretty much ready. So like I went to the bar, I had a couple of Jaeger bombs and like walked the pain off and I ended up out like till 6 a.m. that night. And the next day I wake up and I've had like this amazing night, but I can't move my knee. I like go to get out of bed and I'm like, oh my God. So I like hobble my way down to the car. We drive all the way home. It's only like an hour and a half, and just crash around my mate's house. And I have a little nap on his sofa, and I wake up and I'm in absolute agony. Like I'm holding back the tears, and my mate has to carry me in his arms like a baby to my mum's car. My mum drives me to the hospital, and I've bust my ACL, and so it's swelled up, and they just say, yeah, go home, bed rest, blah blah blah. So I get home, bed rest, and I'm just like in more and more pain every single day, and it goes on for like 2 weeks. And like I can tolerate quite a lot of pain. Like I'm not one to really moan about like little knocks. So my mum knows something's not right, and she rings up the hospital and she's like, look, something's not right. And they're like, oh, we can give more painkillers. And she's like, nah, there's something more than this. Like, I need your name, like, just so that if something does go wrong and this is more than this, like, it's on you. And they were like, all right, bring it in, we'll run some tests. And it turns out I had a septic infection in there. And it's like so rare. I didn't have a single cut, but apparently you have like bacteria going through your system all the time, and it's really, really rare. But if something's a bit inflamed, it's a bit easier for the bacteria to like cling onto that area and like start breathing. So that's how I got the septic infection. So they find out I got the septic infection. They rushed me into surgery like that same day, just to like do an arthroscopy, clear out the infection as much as they can. And I remember like going into shock before that, and like, you know, I said I'm like a level person. Well, I was like going into shock, and like my temperature was going up, it was going down, I was shaking, like I was all over the place. And like I was probably more chill now actually. And I was just like, nurse, like this is happening. And then like everyone just swarms around me. That was like the first time I got rushed into surgery. And then I had a couple arthroscopies while I was in there. I had like needles going in and out of me. I had like morphine on a drip. And I didn't realize how serious it was, because like the pain was so much. They just had me on so much morphine. And I mean, I've never done opioids outside of then, but I don't want to like condone drug use, but all that was going on, I was having like such a good time. Like people were coming to see me, like people were looking after me. I had books, I had films. It was like Euro 2012 was on, and like I had a telly, like I could watch football. And then I remember getting home after spending like a month in there, and while I was in there as well, like I couldn't eat. I didn't have any appetite whatsoever. And then for like last week, I got my appetite back, and I was just like eating everything. I got out and I weighed like 10.5 stone, and I looked like Christian Bale in that film, The Machinist. And like I'm slim now. Like I'm actually doing like a cut just to get shredded and just be really, really lean, veins, abs, all that. And I'm like 11 stone free now. So if you can imagine me like 10 pounds lighter, I was like nothing off me. It was crazy.
So try and explain I know it's quite a while ago. Obviously we're in 2021 now, but can you try and remember the emotions that you're going through, being in the hospital, being visited by friends, family, and knowing that in a sense you went from being healthy and fit and wanting to do what you want to do to being in a state of where now you're kind of just stuck? Do you remember what you were feeling at that stage?
So at that stage, honestly, like the penny hadn't dropped, and I was just enjoying it. Like it was just a good time. And I remember the first moment was I got home and like no one was in the house, and I wanted to, like, I think I was up in my bedroom and I was thirsty, so I went like down the stairs to grab some water and then upstairs. And like I got halfway back up the stairs and I thought I was going to pass out. And I was like, that was the first time it hit me, because I went in there with a knee injury. It didn't hit me that the septic infection was an illness. So like I got halfway up and I was about to pass out, and I'm like, shit, I'm ill. Like I'm ill. I felt like I felt so weak. I've gone from working all the time, playing football, going out partying like a 22-year-old does, to like literally like being out of breath and feeling like I'm going to pass out from getting upstairs. And like that was the moment when I was like, oh man, I'm actually like unhealthy. And it was from then on that it was really, really difficult, because you get to a certain point, and I was working in construction at the time, so you get to a certain point where you can walk around and they sign you back onto work. And because of how much the septic infection took out my body, I ended up with symptoms of chronic fatigue. So like all the time I had brain fog, my whole body ached all the time, and I just felt rubbish all the time. And like all the energy I did have, I'm going and working this job that I didn't even really like anyway, and then the rest of the time I'm just like laid up in bed. And that was really, really tough. Like I literally lived in misery, and I was just so desperate to get healthy and fit again. Like I almost became what I've heard referred to as orthorexic, where like you don't eat a single piece of junk food. Like I wouldn't have a coffee. Like it would be a green tea. It would be like I wouldn't even have pre-made. Like I took on every single bit of advice that was given to me, and I went down to this bro bodybuilding gym. Like bro bodybuilding, for anyone watching this, is like a bro is like someone who's like chicken, broccoli and rice, listens to advice from the 70s. Like anything that isn't chicken, broccoli and rice like can't be good for you. So it's like I remember this guy was like, oh, I make my own seasonings up because I don't know what they put in those pre-made ones. Like they could be throwing anything in there. So like I was making my own seasonings up. Like that's how bad it was. Like I remember I would go to someone's like barbecue and like drink green tea and have like some Tupperware. And like there's a Mourinho quote. He has like a documentary from when he was at Inter Milan. It's like something like, a lot of people work hard, but you need to work well. You need to work hard and well. And like I worked hard, I did not work well. Like I took all the advice down this pro bodybuilding gym. I wanted to gain muscle, but like who wants to put body fat on? Not really anyone. But it's like they were telling you it's a part of the bulking process, and like you got to put it on and shred it off. And like I ballooned up to like 15 stone at one point, and my waist was like 10 inches wider. My body was like really out of proportion. Like I had a massive left tricep and shoulder, but like I had no chest there because like no one told me how to lift properly. And like whereas like my right pec was like perfect, but like the arm wasn't as big, and it was just messed up. And like you never did like no one told me about like a warm up or mobility or anything like that. And so you were doing overhead press, but it's like you didn't even have the shoulder mobility, because I've been on crutches with like my shoulders hunched up to my ears. So like I've gone in there like already pretty out of balance anyway, and I've just compounded it. So like I couldn't even get my arms above my head, so I'm doing like an overhead press. I'm like leaning so far back, like my spine's like this and my legs are like this. And I'm like, oh, my back hurts. So I'm like getting the weightlifting belt. And honestly, the weightlifting belt is how I know how much I lost off my waist.
Yeah.
Because I remember getting it for Christmas, and like I always had a small waist. So I remember asking my nan to get me. I was like, oh yeah, just get me the small one. Oh, I like had to go like just to get in the small one and like pull everything in as tight as possible. And then by the time like I got back down to like a normal weight, like it was literally like that much difference. I had to poke new holes in and everything. So yeah, I went down this pro bodybuilding gym. I did like your chest day, your back day, and just ate chicken, broccoli, and rice every 3 hours. I ate egg whites. Do you know how sad egg whites are? Like, and I got
Yeah.
fat. I think back to that, and I'm like, it served me well professionally because it made me look for better information. So I always think I'd have probably become a personal trainer if I hadn't have gone through that, or if I did. But if I'd have been one of those genetic elites who just did all that and looked absolutely amazing, I'd have never questioned it. And I'd have looked great. I'd have got loads of clients, and I'd have put them on the same plans. And I'd never had any empathy. I'd have never had a plan B, and I would have broke people. Whereas for going through that and then having to get into like evidence-based nutrition and being more skeptical
Yeah.
and questioning things and all of that,
Mm.
now I can coach people with flexibility. I can coach people with evidence, and yeah. So
Yeah. No, it seems
yeah.
like you definitely learned from that experience. And I find this whole discussion quite fascinating because I was on a similar journey about 12 months ago when I moved up north from down south. The previous 2 years prior to moving, I'd put on a hell of a lot of weight. I just went completely off the rails. I wasn't caring anything about my food, takeaway after takeaway, even the food shop from the supermarket, no sense at all in terms of vegetables. It was literally all processed food. And I paid the price. And when I moved here about 12 months ago, I said, okay, enough's enough. Do I want to do something about it? If I do, then I need to get into shape and get my act together. So I went on a 3-month program with a personal trainer here in Liverpool. And it was really interesting because the process allows you to go on this tremendous learning curve, not just about lifting weights necessarily or exercising, but also the science behind eating and what it means to eat well. Um, and it's interesting what you say about the broccoli and the chicken and the rice diet. Um, what part of that advice is wrong? Because to the layman, it would seem broccoli, okay, that's vegetables, rice, okay, that's good carbs, chicken, that's protein. Why is that type of advice not 100% correct in your opinion?
How many people do you know that will stick to eating chicken, broccoli, and rice and nothing else every 3 hours?
Right.
That's
Okay.
why. That's why it's wrong.
Right.
Like, if you like eating chicken, broccoli, and rice, like I know some bros, and they're like, honestly, I don't really like cooking. It's just so easy just to eat chicken, broccoli, and rice, take it to work with me. And I'm like, you crack on. Like, but my clients, like my demographic is typically women between the ages of like 30 to 55 who their priorities outside of fitness. Normally their mums, normally they got another half. I don't know what's easier, like having a partner or not. Like sometimes it sounds like it's like another child, like a house to look after, a job they work, and like you're going to put them on chicken, broccoli, and rice. Like it's not going to work. They need more flexibility. So that surely from an adherence perspective.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you're on that strict diet of, for example, chicken, rice, broccoli, so you're saying the temptation then is more to go away from that and start eating junk food, for example.
So when I take someone on,
Yeah.
and the reason I get annoyed about poor, what I would deem as poor practice is, imagine you've just lived your life and you never really thought about like health or anything like that, and it's finally caught up with you and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go hire someone to help me out with this, and
Yeah.
then your first experience is chicken, broccoli, and rice, or like and the workouts are like incredibly grueling, and they like leave you like sore for days, and like it's just this intense, restrictive, horrible thing, and you're just like, oh no, I'll just be unhealthy. Like, do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I
And
think it's not it's like I say, like I said, I wouldn't have had a plan B if it had worked for me, and then I didn't ever learn any better. Like if someone said to me, it's just like, I just find chicken, broccoli, and rice really, really easy to stick to. I'm like, yeah, crack on. But like, you need to know that if at any point chicken, broccoli, and rice is too restrictive, there are other ways. Like, it doesn't have to be restrictive. Like if um,
I do actually like
I'm not.
your posts on Facebook, because you talk a lot about this, about creating a good balance between healthy food, was not saying to yourself that you're not allowed to have any treats at all. So I've seen a
Yeah,
few posts where you talk about that, about the importance of treating yourself.
there's a guy called Martin McDonald who's absolutely brilliant when it comes to evidence-based nutrition.
Right.
So I've not looked at the studies in this, but he was saying how the rate of perceived restriction on a diet is an indication of your ability to stick to that diet.
Right.
So yeah, actually, interestingly, you could be on the same diet as someone, and if you perceived it to be more restrictive than they did, they would have more chance of it. So you could get, I don't know, say one of the bros who just likes a really, really simple diet, and he can just happily eat chicken, broccoli, and rice all the time. His perceived level of restriction on that diet isn't going to be a lot. Whereas if you take someone who works in an office in a more social environment, and like food enjoyment is more important to them, and they've got to like have chicken, broccoli, and rice, and they don't even really enjoy it, their perceived level of restriction is going to be really, really high.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. So I'd say with the whole health and fitness game, there's, because what you mentioned earlier about the advice being given about food and healthy food and what it means to eat well, what would be, say, if you were to give one piece of advice that you've learned from your own life experience of trying to find a balance between knowing what's right to eat and also not shying away from the odd treat here and there? Like, how do you manage it yourself? I'm sure you have cravings for desserts and takeaways. How do you manage it yourself?
I think the important thing is to know that you have unconditional permission to eat whatever you want,
Right.
and that nothing's off limits.
Right.
But it's always a trade-off. So it's figuring out, is the short-term gratification worth the long-term feeling of your decisions? Um, and that's, I think, would be the best thing, because it's really easy to have an emotional reaction to a little bit of stress and then like go through a whole pack of chocolate. But if you're doing that all the time, and then you hate how you feel because of whether it's the poor energy because you've just crashed, whether it's because you hate that you can't fit into your favorite pair of jeans, or whatever it is, I think it's weighing up whether your habits are actually serving you and whether they're actually making you feel better.
Right. So how you feel has a lot to do with it. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Now my next question is a bit selfish, because we spoke about your knee injury earlier,
Yeah.
and about 2.5 years ago, I had a go-karting accident. And at the time, I didn't realize that I had sustained an injury. And it was only a few weeks after that when I went back to work. And part of my previous job in television involved a lot of running around, especially close to when the show used to go live. So I was running up and down, getting the guests coming to the studio. And at one point, I remember my right knee just gave way and I nearly buckled. And I went to the doctor, they did a scan, and they found that during the go-karting accident, my knee had basically lost some of its cartilage.
Mm.
And what I didn't know at the time was when cartilage gets damaged, it's very difficult for cartilage to grow back. And the initial advice that was given to me by a physio was to try and strengthen the muscle around my knee, so especially the top part of my right leg. So I just wanted your advice, really, in terms of specialist exercises that I could do to lessen the pain that I feel in my knee, because I find it very difficult to run now. If I run for
Yeah.
a prolonged period of time, my knee just starts swelling and incredible pain. So instead of running, what else can I do to keep my leg exercised?
So I actually have no cartilage in my left knee. Like
None at all.
it's if there's any, there's hardly any. It's like, so I
Right.
actually I absolutely love playing football, and I hadn't played since I was diagnosed. Anyway, after all my knee issues, I finally got back to playing football. I managed like 3 months of the first 3 months of 2 seasons in a row, and then I finally got diagnosed with arthritis in my knee, and it was the wear and tear arthritis, osteoarthritis. So it was like
Right.
nothing, and my doctor said, like, you've got nothing. It's just bone on bone. It's like the worst knee I've ever seen on a 26-year-old. And as long as I don't do high impact stuff, heavy weights, twisting and turning, so running will come out under high impact, I'm absolutely fine. So like I can go hiking. Like one of the best things I did in my travels, actually, I did like a 4-day hike in Colombia to like this lost city in some like mountain region through jungle and all that.
Right.
But I would be walking like 12 hours a day and just up and down hills all day, and my knee was absolutely fine. I played one game of six-a-side football for half an hour. I couldn't walk for a week and a half. Like, so I can't run, I can't do twisting and turning stuff. And the way I exercise it myself, and the way that I would think would be beneficial for you, would be just weighted exercises. So some squat variations, some deadlift variations, some lunge variations, some sideways stuff. Sideways squats, sideways lunges. Have you seen those mini bands that all like the Instagram fit chicks
Yeah.
use? Yeah,
I've
yeah.
seen a lot
So
of that
like,
recently. Yeah.
but that'll be really good for you as well.
Right.
Yeah,
Is
and
that to create resistance between the legs?
yeah. So basically, it's your glutes take your legs apart.
Right.
So when you put a band around it, and the band's resistance pulls your knees in, and then you have to push your knees out against the resistance of the band, it just works your glutes.
Right. And you mentioned arthritis. That's something that the consultant said to me. He said in your later years, there's going to be a high chance that you'll get arthritis. So do you experience the arthritis pain at the moment?
Honestly, not very often.
Right.
As long as, I mean, I take it pretty easy unless I do something that I know I shouldn't, like playing football, six-side. I remember I went paintballing for my friend's birthday, and it was just like really wet and muddy. And honestly, like I could hardly walk up the stairs like a few hours later. But if I stay away from doing stuff like that,
Yeah.
then I'm absolutely fine. I do like a lot of body weight or very low weight exercises on my legs, and I find that helps a lot. And I found through the injuries that I've had, if I don't actively exercise my legs and do some stretches, they'll sort of contort into a way that I start to get knee pain on the inner part of my knee.
Yeah.
So I would just recommend lightweight training. I throw it in my cardio, so I'll mix it up. I'll do some circuits, and I'll just throw on a timer, and I'll go in between like doing very light leg exercises, some core work, and just some stuff that gets the heart rate up.
Right.
And that'll be my leg training. I'm quite fortunate in that I've still got big legs from football, so I'm actually like, I kind of still want them a bit smaller.
Yeah.
So I'm like not even bothered about making them bigger. But even if you wanted to make them bigger, you could still do a bunch of stuff. There's still loads of ways, but I wouldn't recommend running if you're getting paid from it.
Yeah.
One
After
thing I do actually, I don't know if this will work for you, but like I found the cross trainer really agrees with me. So there's like no impact on it,
yeah.
and I mean, I know that if I put it on level 15 and I do 5 kilometers on there and I can get it under 20 minutes, that I'm decently fit.
Yeah, no,
So
cross trainers, it's a fun one to do. It's a shame that I can't run because I do actually really enjoy it. And I can
yeah,
manage about 10 minutes. And then once I start hitting 15, 20 minutes, I can start feeling the knees. So yeah, no, I appreciate the advice. Thank you for that.
yeah. Like
Now, yeah, so go on.
sorry, I just like I see a bunch of people and they like don't want to accept their limitations, and they just
Yeah.
end up doing themselves a bunch of damage. Like I've met people and they're like, like I really want to run a marathon because I've got a bad hip and I just don't want to give up. And I'm like, you're an idiot. Like you're just such an idiot. Like just go do something else.
Yeah.
Like there is no help in you. Like I know a guy called Ben who's does like rehab and stuff like that, and I'll just like go see him after and
Right.
line his pockets.
Right. No, no, it's interesting. Again, I appreciate the advice. And like you said, it's just about being real with yourself and your situation. So I'll definitely take that on board. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit and go back to your traveling. And you mentioned that you're really into the Spanish language. You've been learning Spanish
Mm.
for the last 4 years, I believe. And
Yeah.
now Spanish is quite a beautiful language. I thought about learning Spanish a couple of years ago, but to be honest, I've been really lazy and I haven't really put any effort into doing it. But you said that you also wanted to travel around the world, especially to South America. Was that to try and improve your Spanish?
So yeah,
Or
actually
yeah,
no, I want to learn. I can already speak Spanish at a conversational level. I got to work on
right,
my hearing and my vocabulary, but like I'm pretty advanced. So I last time I was in Colombia at the end of 2019, the start of 2020, um, and I like I'm gonna laugh when I say this, but like I was dating girls who couldn't speak English, and
right.
I'm like, is that why I learned it? But like, yeah, because like people are like, oh, you learned it for work, and I'm like, nah. And they're like, what are you learning it for? I was like, honestly, I think it's just to date Latin
To date
girls.
girls.
But yeah, I always tell people, and I've never heard anyone say this, but I'm like, honestly, you're gonna have to put a good solid 2 years in before you can get to a level where you're gonna have a conversation. So it's like you could either learn just enough to get by, which you could learn in like an hour and just have a cheat sheet and
Right,
just go back and forth, or you're in it for the long haul. But yeah, basically I had a flight to Colombia again for October, and I was like just gonna land there, and I'd set my business up. So I've got an employee who takes the training sessions for me.
right.
So whether I'm there or not, like the sessions still go on, and I've just got to fill them, organize the clients, check in every now and then, write the programs. So I could do that anywhere in the world, and that was my plan. And then coronavirus happened and fucked my whole life up.
Yeah, it's been a tough
But
last year. But look, once the pandemic is over, what are your plans in terms of travel? Do you have any particular countries that you still want to visit that you haven't done yet?
yeah, I just want to go do what I was going to do, to be honest. Like land down in Colombia because I know a bunch of people there, so I want to go see them. There's a really good Spanish school there, so like it's called Blink Spanish. If you are interested in learning Spanish, like they have this immersion hostel, and basically you go there, they put you up in a hostel, like they feed you breakfast and lunch, they give you like 4 to 5 hours of lessons a day in a group environment, and they do like loads of social activities in the evening. I went there back in 2018 for 4 weeks and it was amazing. I had like time of my life. And then I went back again, I think November 2019, did another 4 weeks. And I was just going to go there, top up a little bit again, see people, and then do like 2 weeks. And then I was just going to go down Colombia, visit a few places I didn't go to before, visit some places that I just really loved from before. And then I was just going to go through Ecuador and then like end up in Argentina. So I want to do that again, definitely.
Cool. Sounds good. Sounds good, man. Um, is it okay if we talk about something that you said on the emails a couple of days ago? And again, I found this really interesting. You said you like to live your life in a non-traditional way, meaning you want to live life the way you choose to live life. And you touched on the often traditional route took by many, which is get into a serious relationship or get married by a certain age, buy a house by a certain age, have kids by a certain age. Um, and you mentioned that while it's fine for people if they adopt that, you also believe that it's not the only way to find happiness and fulfillment in your life. So, if you don't mind, perhaps we can touch on that for a few minutes. I'd love to know where that thinking and how you've found adopting that way of life.
So I think it came from, I'm really open-minded, but also I've come to realize, like, and I don't know if I'd have been the same if I hadn't had this, but like my parents were really, really supportive. Like, um, so it's just like whatever I went and did, they go and support me. So there's never really been any pressure on me for anything. So no one's been pushing me in that direction. And I guess I'm always been like a little bit, what's the word? Like, I guess like non-conformist a little bit. Like I like playing devil's advocate and stuff like that. But I just, yeah, I guess I see a lot of people who are just like, they're desperately looking to like tick their boxes of getting a house, finding the other half, getting like the nice car, like all these things. And it's like, for what?
Mm.
Like, I've been out with girls and it's just like you're there and it's like they're quizzing you to see if you can tick their boxes for them, and it's like they're not even trying to experience that moment, like they're not even trying to like be there. They're
Right.
just seeing if you can like tick the boxes, and I think that's mental. But like for me, like I might end up with a house, with a wife, all those sorts of things, but I wouldn't look for it. I just kind of take life as it comes. And um I remember like when you do this as well, you'll get some like messed up stuff said to you. Like if you like flipped it around and said the same thing relevant to them, like this, it'll be weird. Like someone said to me once, they were like, "Aren't you scared you'll die alone?" And I'm like, "What?" I mean, like I've literally never thought about that. Like I mean, I'm gonna die, so I guess like I'll be dead and it won't matter. But like flip that around. What if
Yeah.
like this person had like, and I didn't say this because it's genuinely horrible. But like they have two kids and they have a husband, and I'm like, what if they all die and you're just left alone? Like, do you know what I mean? So that's super messed up. That's why I didn't say it. But like, yeah, I
Yeah, no,
just I don't know.
I get that. I get that a lot as well from people who are close to me in the family, whether that be relatives, not necessarily with the friends, because I think with friends you have that understanding anyway,
Yeah,
right? About life, your outlook on life. So you'll never get questioned from friends, which is cool, but you'd get a lot with family, and especially with those who are elder in the family. But because the elders in my family, I understand their cultural point of view. So they're coming from the angle of when they were growing up, where marriage was number one. If you didn't
yeah,
get married, you didn't have a life. But now, for us here, living in the environment that we do, there are so many other things that we want to try and do and try and tackle. And not in a bad way, but when you're trying to do your own hustle, like you're trying to do your hustle with health and fitness, I'm trying to do my own thing with sharing my own message. Sometimes it's actually nice to be on your own timetable without having to, I don't want to use the word worry, but I'm going to use it anyway, not having to worry about the timetable of someone else. And
yeah.
I think serious relationships, I'm not saying we shouldn't go for those things in life, but also don't be miserable and depressed just because you haven't got that, right? And I guess that's what you're trying to say, that there's still life to live.
Have you heard of the sunk cost fallacy?
I haven't, no, but please tell me.
All right, so sunk cost fallacy is like you've invested so much time and or money in something that you just like stick with it because you're just like, oh, I've invested too much into this to walk away now.
Right.
And I just wonder if a lot of people's relationships are like that and they're just unhappy. Um, and for me, I'm just like, I don't know, I've always been all right on my own.
Mm.
I've always met new people and just had amazing experiences, but also like when feelings have come along, like I've fully gone for it. But I
Yeah,
think a lot of people, it's just like they are just so desperate to like tick their boxes that they end up just trying to get someone to fit in that, and then they'll never be truly happy because what they have isn't genuine. And actually, in a weird way, like I honestly think for some people that's probably best, like having company and ticking boxes, and they just haven't got that like independent free nature where they could just go anywhere and be all right. And I think that's all right, but I think some people just need to like spread their wings a little bit and try not to conform so much, and they'd be much happier. And I'm just like grateful that I don't feel any need to go do any, like I don't feel the need to like go buy a house or get a serious relationship or any of the, or have a child or any of these things. And by not feeling like I have to go do that, if I choose to go do that, isn't that like way more
absolutely.
romantic and nice and things like that? Like that's how I've always looked at it. I
Yeah,
guess
no, yeah, that's yeah, I think it's a more wholesome way of living, to be honest, because you're not continuously worrying about when you're going to find the next person to date, or when you're, as you
yeah.
say, going to have enough money to buy a house, which I don't think is a good idea anyway. Buying a house, I think it's one of the worst investments someone can make. But anyway, maybe that's a conversation for another time. Um, but yeah, and I think it's
Mate,
important to
I don't know how why it came up, but
go
like
on.
I was thinking about buying houses the other day, and I was like, man, that's a lot of money for some walls. Like, I don't even like being home. I like going out.
Yeah, it's a hell of a lot of money, and it's something I've been looking into. Not buying a house, but looking into the alternative perspective on investments and where to invest money. And from from what I've looked into, from what I've researched, what I found is that if you're looking to make an investment in a house, you never really make any money back. It's locked in that house, and even if the value goes up in the house, realistically, if you're going to stay there, have a family there, get married there, have kids there, what are the chances they actually going to uproot and leave and sell that house? Then it really becomes valuable, right? Um, but I guess it works if you're buying a house to maybe rent out, or if you're flipping a house. So, for example, if you buy a rundown house and you spend a few grand doing it up and you sell it for a profit, then that makes sense.
Yeah,
But I don't think it makes sense to buy a house to live in it, because you're not benefiting from any increase in equity in the house anyway. But yeah, as I said, we could sit here hours and talk about that, but I don't want to digress because there's so many other things I want to touch base with you on today. Um, you also mentioned earlier when we were speaking that you're not great at being productive and efficient. And what I found interesting was you have certain tools and tactics that you use to try and overcome this. And you mentioned that one coach told you a very interesting thing to do, which was the 5 second rule, I believe, which is if you're thinking about doing something, instead of overthinking, just go and do the bloody thing. So,
yeah.
how have you found that concept? Has it been working for you?
Honestly, it does. Like I don't. It doesn't work every single time, but the amount of times now that because I'm conscious of it,
Yeah.
instead of like sitting there thinking, all right, I'll go do it in 20 minutes, I'm like, just go do it now. Like, what else are you going to do other than sit here and think about doing it? So I'll like just get up and go do it. And honestly, that has really, really helped. Like I say, I'm not very productive, but I think what I have done is I don't spread myself thin and I just put all my like eggs in one basket, which actually like, because of coronavirus, it kind of stitched me up. But before that, then it was going really, really well.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at ways I can like develop it. 'Cause that thing's kind of already there, so I can put more energy into other stuff. But like, so for example, people are like, oh, how comes you only train women? And I'm like, if a guy comes to me and wants to give me money, like I'll train him. But I, if I say I do a lot of group training, say I did put on a men's group training once, but like, say I do a men's group training as well. All right, all of the things. So when someone comes into my group, I'll add them into the Facebook group. I'll be like, all right, here's the files section. There's a video series and all the things that typically, because they all want to typically lose weight and tone up, they need to know about that. And it's all aimed at females. Now, if I train men as well, I got to make that twice. So I realized this probably 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm like, I just write all my content for one group. I do all of like the things that I build structurally within the business so that it serves one group. And for me, it's like that's 50% of the population are female. I don't need to go like make more work for myself. I can just find more of the same type of person from my exact same demographic, and then my life's easier. So that is something I've done for just actually getting stuff done. And one other thing as well is just not trying to be perfect with it. So for example, I started putting out YouTube videos earlier. Like I don't know how to edit yet. I might learn later, but I'll just put the camera on and talk, and I'll just like go onto Canva, give it a nice looking thumbnail. But like I didn't even do the Canva nice thumbnail first. I just like put it out because I can make it better later. Say I make this video and the content's really good, but it has no editing at all. Later when I edit, I can just re-record the video or use the same recording before and then just put the pretty editing on it. Like just get it done and then just perfect it later. Or even if you don't perfect it, at least like it's done and it's out there.
Yeah, that's a concept that I've really been struggling with as well over the past 6 months or so. Because my thinking in the past was perfection, perfection, perfection. It has to look amazing. Spend hours, spend days on perfecting it and then put it out. But the problem with that is you lose so much time in the space that you spent for one video. You could potentially do 3, 4, maybe 5 videos and put them all out. And that's kind of a new process that I'm trying to manage myself as well, trying to let go of that fear of, oh, if it's not perfect, what will they think of it? Forget that. Just do your work, record your message and put it out there.
Yeah. There's this guy called Brett Contreras who's like the glute guy, and honestly, his videos are so bad, like, but the content is so good that they've just got like millions of views, like. And I always think about that when I go do a video because, like, I'm like, at least I got a ring light, at least I got at least I got a fluffy microphone, and I can do like a Canva thumbnail, just like go get it done. And
exactly. Yeah. No, good
Um,
luck with that. How's that all going, by the way? The YouTube and everything. How are you finding it?
It's going all right. I'm just putting stuff out there. I said I want to do one video a week this year, and I've done one video a week.
Good.
My subscribers are going up, nothing crazy, but like
Nice.
I think I'm at like 77 or something like that. But you know, it's 77 more than I had before, and
there you go.
We ain't even out of January yet.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm sure it will pick up eventually, and I'll get more momentum the more I put stuff out. But yeah, short-term goal is to get to 1,000. I want to get ideally to that by like July, but I figure the worst case scenario is I'm putting out content. If you're putting yourself out there, you get authority, you get expert status. Then when you have a product, you've already got an audience there. I actually want to tie this back as well, like to health and fitness. Is like a lot of people feel like they have to be too perfect, and it stops them from taking action. Like they need the perfect workout plan, they need the perfect diet plan, and like they won't start until they've done that. And it's just like, you don't even go to the gym yet, just go twice a week, and honestly, you could do the worst things ever and you'll still get some results, like just because you weren't doing anything before. And with your diet, like if I get someone who inquires about doing some personal coaching with me, and for whatever reason they can't do it, can't afford it, doesn't fit their timetable or whatever, I'm like, don't let not signing up with me now stop you from doing something. Like just do something that's really, really obvious. Like just do the things you already know you should do, and that'll get you somewhere. Because people just like, it's like why people start on Monday. Like it could be Tuesday. Like honestly, if you weren't perfect on Tuesday, some people like won't be perfect on Tuesday, so they won't start again until Monday. Like, actually, like so I've lost about 7.5 pounds in, I think it's 19 days up until now, and I'm still like a 28-day diet. And I've got so 28-day diet, so I've got like 9 days left after this. Another thing as well, like fitness is so flexible. I can't do slow and steady,
right?
So I would rather just get the results quicker and then try and maintain. Normally I've got into this habit of I get the results quick and then go on holiday and don't give myself a chance at maintaining. But yeah, it just suits me better to go hard and fast. But the good thing about hard and fast is that calorie deficit is so big that your margin for error before you get up to the point where you get like being a calorie surplus is so high. So like I burn about roughly 3,000 calories a day. So my aim is 2,000 calories a day. And I
Right.
think I've been under 2,000 9 days or something like that. But I've gone over like 10 days.
Right.
And like some of those days I went over by 1,000. But like if I'm in 1,000 calorie deficit and I exceed my plan by a
Yeah.
thousand calories, I've exceeded it by a lot, but I'm still at weight maintenance for that day. Um, so it's like just being all right with not being perfect. But like the amount of days I've gone like 2,100, and because I haven't got that it has to be perfect mentality, I'm just like, that's good enough. Whereas the person who is like, oh, everything needs to be perfect, we're like, well, it's not perfect now, so I might as well go drink a bottle of wine and eat a pizza. And then they've just like completely spiraled out of control, and then they don't bother until Monday.
Yeah, I do that sometimes as well when I'm trying to because I was on a great stint for the first 3 months when I did that intense 3 month training session, and after that finished, I managed to maintain it for a good few months. And then recently, I would say over the last couple of months, just before lockdown hit, for some reason, I found it difficult to get back into the swing of things. So I went off course for a good couple of weeks where I just started binging. And I asked myself why. And I still don't know 100% why. I don't know if it was a case of because I hadn't binged in a good few months, it was just catching up on me.
Yeah.
So from the people you work with, does that happen to your clients sometimes where they're very strict for a period of time and then they just digress and go back? Or do you make sure that doesn't happen by
So
the
you
way?
can't.
Yeah.
I'm basically when I talk to a client and they're like, yeah, I'm smashing it. I haven't ate any pizza or whatever, or like haven't drank any wine. I'm like, that's great, but you don't need to be that restrictive,
Right.
and you need to be aware that the time where you are like, I do fancy pizza or I do fancy wine or whatever, that you don't let that spiral out of control. So the way I would coach that is, I know that I assume that they're going to end up binging if they're too restrictive. So something that I always do in all of my coaching, actually, if I spot something, I try and like tell them what's going to happen before it happens. I'm like, this is going to happen. And because they know it's going to happen, I've told them about it, they can like normalize it, and they can be like, all right, Ross said that was going to happen, and then he said to do this after. Whereas opposed to it happening, them being like feeling like a failure, and then just reverting back to type. And I don't know if this happened to you, but this is really relevant for this year,
Right.
is you build a bunch of habits within your lifestyle, and
Yeah.
then like the smallest lifestyle change can just disrupt that habit, and then you end up, because you're caught off guard. I can't remember what it was, but like it even happened to me, and I was like, what am I doing? Oh, it was, do you know what, I got into a really good habit of like having a very healthy breakfast
Right.
um during lockdown, and I still have it now because we're in lockdown. Anyway, the gym's open again. I would do 6 a.m, 7 a.m, and then I'd have a gap in between 8 a.m and 9:30 a.m,
Right.
and there's a Greg's around the corner. So I would just keep going to Greg's and getting like a sausage roll. And I'm like, what am I doing?
And
So
did
like it
that
happened.
become a habit?
Yeah, that became the new habit. And then it was like a sausage roll plus a cookie and plus a flat white. And before I know it, I've gone from having this like bowl of oats with like nuts and seeds, and it's like under 500 calories and it's got a good amount of protein, to like having no protein and like a sausage roll and a cookie. And I've like knocked back 900 calories devoid of nutrition. I feel rubbish and like I'm gaining weight, and I'm just like, yeah. So I coach myself all the time. Like I'm just a normal person with like normal people issues. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I
Well,
think a
see,
lot of it is just I try and coach like self-awareness and self-management, and I definitely ask people about their triggers and try and manage it as best as possible.
yeah. See, I do a lot of work from home. So I do a lot of customer service based work during the day, Monday to Friday. And that never used to be the case until a few months ago. And when I started that job, sometimes the starts are quite early. So I skip breakfast a lot of the times. And I find myself extremely hungry come lunchtime. But I don't know if this is what I'm doing is healthy or not, but I find that I'm able to lose weight or lose more fat by not having breakfast and saving my lunch to later in the day. So I end up having usually 2 meals instead of 3, and those meals tend to be fairly healthy. Is that a good thing to do?
It is, to be honest. How often you eat and when you eat doesn't matter at all. It just
Right.
really doesn't matter. Um, just for good health is like, do you feel good? Are you eating a nutritious diet? Are your calories in line with whatever your goals are? And
Yeah.
then honestly, beyond that, like, do you eat once a day? Do you eat 5 times a day? It's like, who cares? Like, up
Right.
until probably like, it's so flexible, honestly. It's
Mm.
just so something I coach my clients on is like, I'm like, here are the principles that you need to adhere to lose weight and tone up or whatever their goal is. I'm like, here's a bunch of methods that can help you do that. So a method for you is you're only eating twice. So if you only eat twice, you're probably going to eat less than if you ate 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, unless. But then also you need to have that self-awareness. So like someone could hear that, they could be watching this right now and they'll be like, oh, I'm going to try that. And then like come lunchtime, they're absolutely starving and then they end up just binging. And
Yeah.
like it doesn't work for them, but they keep trying to like go with it and they're like, why is it not working for me? And it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, I do have a tendency for that. So if I haven't eaten breakfast and I leave my first meal to very late, I do start craving crap food. And that happened a
Yeah.
couple of times over the past 2 weeks where I didn't have anything until, well, nothing properly until about 4 p.m. And by that time, come 5, I was like, I need something unhealthy, greasy. And it's happened twice where I've got a naughty takeaway, and I don't
Yeah.
want to get into that habit because I know once I get into that habit, I find it very difficult to come out of it. And I don't want to
Do you,
go back to how I was before.
do you know what it is as well? It's like you've called it a habit. Most people wouldn't call that a habit. They'd be like,
Right.
it's a treat.
Right.
And you'd want to be in the place where I think,
So
and
should I
like
be
I'm someone,
calling it a treat?
no, you're doing it right. Like I think a lot of people literally call it a treat, but then that treat happens 3 times a week and it
Right.
happens in a routine. And it's like, that ain't a treat, that's a habit.
Yeah.
So like I think has having it as um recognizing it is a habit is a good thing,
Mm.
because you're not like, oh, it's a treat, it's all right. You're like, this is a habit, and if I make a habit of this thing, then I know it's not going to be good for me. And like that's for someone who like wants people to have a flexible diet, doesn't want people to be restrictive. But if you're regularly eating takeaways that aren't good for you and you're not feeling too good and you're not getting the results you want, like maybe you need to dial it back a bit. And if you're getting takeaway twice a week, get it once a week. Like that's as simple as it can be, by the way. It's like if you're getting takeaway twice a week, just get it once a week. That's your start.
Right. So that's a good starting point. Just cut back instead of cutting it out completely.
Yeah. This is how um my mum signed up for the first ever group programs I did. Like it was when I got back from that trip where I met you, and
Yeah.
basically it was just a small group personal training, and a bunch of her friends wanted to sign up, and they were like, "Oh, we'll sign up if you sign up, like as a social thing." So she was like, "All right." She didn't even want to get into it, and but she was overweight, and she's lost like 4 stone since, and she absolutely loves it, can do press ups and all that, and anyway, my mum doesn't like vegetables. So like if I was like, so for example, a really, really good technique to help you lose weight is to eat foods that you can have a lot of and not a lot of calories. So a lot of these are vegetables. Like my mum sees the food that I make because I'm a pig. Like I like to eat big foods. So I will eat a lot of low calorie foods that fill up a whole pasta bowl, but it's
Right.
quite a low calorie dish. My mum will be like, oh, I wish I like stuff like that. And she'll be like sat there eating half a pizza. She will literally eat half a pizza because it's only 400 calories. Um, and because she hasn't got that big an appetite. And she isn't going to eat vegetables anyway. So she might as well not eat vegetables and be as slim as she wants to be and lose 4 stone and feel healthier than trying to be perfect and being like, oh, well, if I'm going to diet, I need to have like this perfect like avocado on toast thing. Like she ain't ever going to do that. My mum listened to the principles, applied it to a way that was personal to her,
Yeah.
and she took it bit by bit. Like, so, because I know my mum, like she had dippy eggs with soldiers every single day of my life for as long as I could remember. And I knew she wouldn't be ready to change that. So, but I knew she had like a chocolate bar and a pack of crisps for her lunch, and then she'll come home and she'll literally like, I don't know, her dinners are weird. She'll have like it's cod's roe, but I can't remember what it's called, tara masalata with
Right.
like pita. She'll have like a pack of cheese and onion crisps with like cubes of cheese chopped up and it's like mixed up in a bowl. She'll have like a pizza, or she'll eat like one of our more healthy ones is like fish that she cooks in milk or something like that. But I knew what she was ready to change, so I was like, oh mum, why don't you like ham and you like prawns, like why don't you just take a pack of ham or prawns instead of your chocolate bar and crisps that you have for lunch at work? And she was like, yeah, I could do that. And now her calorie intake is lower and her protein intake is higher, and she got a little bit of the way with that. And my mum loved drinking like cider, literally Strongbow from the bottle, like warm. It's disgusting. She's so basic, but she's lovely, but she's basic. And I was like, oh, you know, there's loads of calories in cider. Like, is there anything you could change it for? So now she has like Bacardi with a Diet Coke instead, and that's just like she saves like 200 or 300 calories a night on that. And then eventually she'd lost like 2 or 3 stone, and she felt really, really good. She got further than she ever wanted to, and she was like, oh, I don't know what else to do now. Like, I'm like, just track. She hadn't tracked anything up until this point. I was like, just track your breakfast. And she was like, all right. And she was having 1,200 calories before she'd even left the house, because she like puts so much butter onto her toast before she like dips it in the egg, and she would knock back so many cups of teas. So now she, again, this was her. She thought about, how can I reduce my calorie intake? How can I get a bit more protein into my diet? And she just really likes eggs. She'll have like 3 hard-boiled eggs and then just like crack some salt onto them. And like, this is like, if you put this down as like, this is the diet plan, someone would be like, this isn't healthy. And I'm like, but it's healthier than she was doing.
Right.
And it got
Right.
her to take action. And
Yeah.
if you gave her a healthier meal plan, she
Mm.
wouldn't bother doing it. So like, I think a lot of people just need to just know that better is
Mm.
better. And
Yeah.
trying to stick to something that you're not going to stick to anyway, like
Mm.
the perfect plan that you can't stick to isn't going to get a result.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting you say that. As you were talking, it reminded me, because when I started the 3-month program, one of my goals was to lose the belly fat that I had, and I still haven't managed to get rid of it completely. And I remember in the 3-month process, every now and then I'd say to the personal trainer, oh shit, man, I'm still not happy. I've still got a bit of belly fat. And he said, dude, look at how you started, look at what you were when you started, and look at where you are 2 months down the line. And I often found myself just ignoring the progress and
Yeah.
jumping ahead to where I wanted to be. And I think that's a problem I had for a while. Whenever I try to commit to something, I look too far ahead, and I need to sometimes bring it back and say, actually, look at the progress that you have made. Do you find that problem with the people you work with?
All the time. I would say that's actually, I don't know if any other personal trainers would agree with this, but I think it's the most frustrating thing is like, you can't pinpoint fat loss from exercise. So you'll get some clients and it's like, I'm always honest. And they'll be like, oh, what ab exercises can I do? And they'll be like, in my program. And I'm like, do you not think I'd be doing those exercises in the program? Like, do you think I'm withholding stuff from you? Like, come on. But it's like, you can train your lower abs as hard as you want.
Yeah.
Like, the horrible truth is you just need to lose more body fat. And I say lose more body fat because normally it's like, this sucks to hear, because like, you know, I hate talking about weight because I know so many people have issues with it. But
Yeah.
it's like, when someone will have like a weight loss goal in mind because they think they'll look a certain way when they get there, and unless you've already been there, you're probably wrong, and you probably need to lose at least like 10 or 20 pounds more. Like, you'll get these guys and they'll be like, oh, I did this diet and I lost a bunch of muscle. It's like, nah, you were just fatter than you thought you were, and you didn't have as much muscle as you thought you had. And it's just one of those things that sucks about it. Like, I'm like like I said, I'm on my like 10-pound fat loss in 28-day plan thing. And some people are like, but you haven't got any weight to lose. And I'm like, oh man, like, honestly, you'll get someone and they're like, oh, I don't want to lose any more weight anymore, I just want to tone up. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to tell them because they've like done so well to like lose the weight. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting you say about like focusing on, I think a lot of people focus on the outcome and then
Yeah.
they lose track of the actual process. So
Yeah.
I focus a lot on process goals. So I'll be like, all right, if you want to get this outcome, this is the process. So your goal is to do this process. And like try and forget about the outcome as much as possible, because if you just like focus on doing the process, you'll get to the outcome anyway. But if you just focus on
Mm.
the outcome, one, you'll probably get like so focused and emotional and annoyed that you're not there that you will stop doing the process, or you'll just focus on the outcome and you won't even be doing the process, and you're not going to get there anyway. So like just focus on the process and you'll get there when you get there. And I understand it's frustrating as well, like but it's just, yeah, it's just that how it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was talking with someone the other day about like, because in the fitness industry everyone's been hit so hard. Like I know so many good personal trainers who have their own facilities, who have just been doing incredibly well, and unless you were an online PT before, like it didn't matter how good you were, you got hit so hard. And like you start feeling sorry for yourself, you start getting victim mentality, but at a certain point you've got to be like, you just got to accept what is and just do the best you can. And it's kind of like worrying about a certain part of your body.
Yeah.
Like if the thing is, here's the thing as well, it's just like some people, and this is common, it's so common, someone will get so annoyed about like having a little bit of more fat on the back of their arm than they wanted to, that they'll get so annoyed that they stop doing the process, and then they'll end up with more fat on the back of their arm and more fat everywhere else, and then they're back to square one. And it's just like if they'd have just been like, accept that I'm doing as much as I can and I'll get there when I get there, like they'd be closer to where they wanted to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it takes a lot of work to get there. I've got clients who say I know it and I get it and I'm getting better at it, and like getting better at it's good. Like it's not like a thing you switch overnight. Like it takes work. Like I said, I'm not going to be going away on holiday when I finish this diet. I'm excited to have a chance at maintenance, because like try maintaining when you're traveling the world. Do you know what I mean? Like that's hard. You've got all these different cultures, the food you want to try. You're out being sociable all the time. So even as a personal trainer who's been doing this for like 7 years, like I'm excited to have a maintenance phase. I've still
Yeah.
got things to work on.
Absolutely. I hope it goes well for you. Good luck with that. Now, we've been talking a lot about fitness over the last few minutes. So, again, I want to switch gears a little bit as we wrap up. You mentioned that you're heavily into reading recently. So, I wanted to ask, are there any particular books, any titles that have really made you excited, and any books that have really drawn you in? Any particular titles that you can share?
Yeah, I found I really like autobiographies actually.
Hmm.
So I've
Interesting.
read 3 autobiographies which really stick out for me.
Right.
Two of them are football based. One of them is the two footballers are like so far apart in like how their life has gone, but one of them is Arsene Wenger, absolute legend,
Hmm.
Arsenal manager of 21, 22 years. Um, but it's all about how he came to seeing football the way he does, how he operated himself, his values. There's a lot about his values, and like one of the things I love about Arsene Wenger, and it was probably his downfall, was just he's so stubborn. But like he's
Hmm.
like, the game must be played this way, and like he wouldn't let anyone deter him from that. Like he always believed in developing young players. He always believed in a passing, attacking, beautiful game, like like all of that. And it was really really interesting. There was some really really nice words in there. And then on the flip side, like, but this guy is like, I don't know, he's someone that's unrelatable for me. He's unrelatable.
Right.
Like, I can read it and I'm like, this is nice, but like, I'm like, this guy's mental. This guy's so obsessed. He was so single minded and so obsessed and so romantic with his ideas that he just wouldn't let anyone change him. And I think that's beautiful and I love it. But then on the flip side, I read Nicholas Bentner's autobiography. And
Right.
Nicholas Bentner, for anyone who doesn't know, if you don't know, is like, he played for Arsenal. He came over when he was like 16 years old. He's a Danish footballer. And he just thought he was incredible. But he had all these drinking and gambling issues, and he just would go off the rails, and he didn't assert himself properly. And like the book is written from this perspective of like, I think he was like 32 or 33, so by no means old in a footballer, but like winding down in his career. And he's gone from playing for Arsenal and Juventus to like playing football in Norway, I think, or I think he might have just got a move to Denmark in Copenhagen. But it was like such a fall from grace, and he basically wrote the book while he was on probation because he like punched a taxi driver. Um, and
God.
yeah, and he was talking about like all the mistakes he made in his life, and how it was like there was always this tone of regret where he appreciated the life that he lived because he just had this incredible life, but at the same time he's like, man, I could have really been like a footballing legend. Whether you believe you could or couldn't is up to you, but like he genuinely believed it.
Right.
And yeah, it was, but the interesting thing was like he told you why he did what he did in the moment and how he fought, and he was just like, when he wasn't playing football and when he wasn't in the first team, he just like he just couldn't not be occupied. Like he had to go do stuff, and he was living in London. He had loads of money. He was a young 20-year-old, and like just had girls and like friends leeching off of him, and well, like friends leeching off him, always wanting him to go out and all these
Right.
things. And yeah, that was really interesting. And then completely off topic from that was just this girl. She's a comedian now, and the book's called Rabbit, the autobiography of Mrs. Pat.
Right.
But basically, she grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, in a really underprivileged area, and like her mum was an alcoholic. She was groomed by like a 22-year-old guy when she was 12, and she had 2 kids by him by the time she was 15. And like this guy was married, he had like multiple girlfriends, but like it was the only person that had given her like any love.
Right.
So she was like absolutely obsessed with him, and he became a drug dealer, like moved her into a nice apartment, and but then he got like sent down, and she had like a welfare check of like 250. Her rent was like 500. So she was like, oh, I'm gonna have to start selling crack as well. So she like took her 250 welfare check, bought crack with it, started selling it, went really really well.
Right.
um and but then she ended up being this comedian who like got her life together, found a husband, like moved out to, I don't know, like Idaho or something, just living in like a nice area, just like duck pond and all that, going from like, yeah, literally like selling crack in the trap with like 2 kids. She was like 15 years old selling crack, like it was insane. But because she's a comedian, she told all this like heavy stuff, like a really interesting, easy way to read. um so that was really good. And then the one that I'm reading now is James Smith, like really, really famous guy. Do you know James Smith, the fitness guy?
I
Swears
don't
a lot,
know.
blonde Australian.
Is he an
I don't
online personality or?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
He's massive. I don't really follow him because it's like his stuff is for the layperson. And then he
Right.
wrote
Right.
like this not a life coach book, and he was on a podcast with a guy called Paul Moore, who I followed since like day one. He's a marketing guy,
Right.
and I've just like started getting back into like listening about marketing, and I saw that he'd done a podcast with him. And even though I don't really watch his stuff, I thought, this guy's kind of cool, and like he's
Yeah.
done really, really well for himself. So it'd be interesting to hear him talk about like his rise going up there. And he was talking a little bit about his book, and I thought I'd relate with some of it. So I'm probably like 100 pages into that or something, and it's like it's actually a lot of what I would relate to anyway. It's about challenging traditional ways of living your life and seeing if it serves you and if it actually makes you happy and stuff like that. But yeah, it's all right at the moment. I don't really feel like it's anything new, so I'm just hoping. There was some stuff he talked about in the podcast that I'm yet to come to. That is the reason I picked up the book, because I thought I'd find it relatable. So yeah, how
Awesome.
about you? Are you an avid reader?
So when I was traveling, close to that time when we actually went to Spain, so just before Spain, I was living in Malta for about 2 months, and
Yeah,
that
I
was the
remember that you saying
last.
that.
Yeah, and that was the last time that I was actually fully into reading, where I would read 50, 100 pages a day. And then, funnily enough, since I come back from those few trips to Malta, to Spain, um, for some reason I've just gone off reading completely. I tend to find information online, whether that be through YouTube or articles online, instead of reading. But I do know the joy that I get, and you maybe experience this yourself as well. The joy that you get from turning a physical page is very different to reading something online. Um, so that's something I'm trying to work on now. There's one book actually that Tim Ferriss mentioned. Have you heard of Tim Ferriss?
Yeah,
The guy in America.
yeah.
So
The 4 week work, the
4 hour work
4
week
hour
guy.
work week. Yeah, I've never read his stuff, but I know I've heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was watching one of his YouTube videos the other day, and he talked about a really interesting marketing book. So that's probably going to be my next buy. But yeah, no, there aren't any titles at the moment that I'm immersed in. That's one of my downfalls over the last couple of years. I've kind of neglected reading physical books. So that's why I was really intrigued when you mentioned it when we were talking on email. So I thought, okay, that's something I have to talk to you about, because it really got me excited, and you've actually inspired me to get back into reading. So thanks for
Do you know
that.
what? Do you know what I like about reading? Because, like you say, there's so many ways to consume information that I don't think
Yeah,
there's a right or a wrong way.
yeah,
Like, I learned the majority of what I learned from going to seminars and doing it in person, because I'm just not that good at reading.
right.
Whereas, like, someone could go read and like get all that information. But for me, like, I think because of the pandemic, you end up spending so much time on your phone, and
Yes.
I've definitely noticed a correlation between like the less time I spend on my phone, the more happy I am. So, and also like I feel like so many people, myself
Mm,
included, are just addicted to low level stimulus that it starts to chip away at our ability to like go into deep thought or deep work. And like, how often will you be like watching Netflix, but like you're on your phone as well? Like to think like what, like the Netflix isn't enough of a low of a stimulation. Like I've got to be like on Instagram or something as well.
it's
And
true.
it's just like when I've got the book in my hands, like I can't be anywhere else. Like, so I've got to read the words properly. I've got to like listen to the words in my head. I've got to take them in. I can't physically do anything else because I've only got two sets of hands.
Mm,
And I think that's what I've liked about reading so much, is just like, I was saying to my dad the other day, I was like, books are never going to go anywhere, because like that's so valuable.
mm.
It like, there's so much low level stimulus. Like look at the rise of TikTok. Like I've not had TikTok, but I kind of know what it is. It's just like, it just gives you a little hit of like 20 or 30 seconds of low level stimulation, and then you just lose the ability to go deep and even read a book, and then you just wonder why like you're so like sad.
Yeah. Have you got any particular genres for books that you're wanting to explore?
um I like I like when people just talk about stuff. I
Right,
don't really
right,
like I don't really like a story. Like I just, do you know what I do as well? I got really into doing this. Like I'll find an artist or just someone that I really really like the perspective of, and
right.
I will just watch everything they do. So like I love Kanye West, and I
Mm,
find him really interesting. So I've like listened to every podcast, read a bunch of interviews and stuff like that, because like he's just a fascinating guy. And I think the thing as well is like, you don't have to agree with something that everyone says to find them fascinating or interesting.
mm. So true.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so like I'll say like I love Kanye West. People will be like, "You love Kanye West? Kanye West like said this, said that," and I'm just like I do this thing with I swear all I do is like talk to my mom now, but like I'll say something like that will come up and it will be relevant in conversation. I'll be like, "Oh, this person said this." I was like, "That's fascinating, isn't it?" She was like, "Yeah, that's really interesting." I was like, "Kanye
You know,
West."
it's cool. It's cool to follow people who you take inspiration from, people
Yeah.
you admire. And like you said, you don't
Who are your
necessarily.
people?
So I would do a lot of similar people to like Tim Ferriss.
Yeah.
So Tim Ferriss, quite a bit of that. Also a bit of Gary Vee,
Yeah.
and a bit of Grant Cardone. And then recently, actually, very interesting. So a couple of weeks ago, no longer than 2 weeks ago, about 6 weeks ago, I went down south to visit my parents, because we're our each other's support bubble.
Yeah.
So since coronavirus, those are the only people I've seen, and I'm the only person that they've interacted with. So that's all cool. And I was speaking to my dad, and he said, "Oh, I've really started getting into this guy called Jordan Peterson." And Dad mentioned him a while ago before, but I never had the chance to actually watch his stuff. Um, and he's a Canadian guy. He lectures at a Canadian university, I believe, in Toronto. And he talks a lot about his views to do with the world. A lot of his views are political, and it's interesting because I'm not into politics at all, but I really was impressed by the grasp of his research that he's done into the world, the history of the world, and how different cultures interact with each other. And if you have a moment, try Googling the guy or YouTubing. You may find it interesting.
I actually went to see him in at the
Oh, you
Cambridge
did?
Corn Exchange talk. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
amazing. So yeah,
yeah,
I just find him really intriguing because one, he's so passionate about what he believes in. And what I love about him as well is if someone tries to attack him, he will always stand tall and defend his point of view
yeah,
so strongly that I've never seen anyone else do it like him. And it's not a case of do I agree with him or not, because that's not my forte and it's not a subject that I take a keen interest on, but I just respect and value the way he talks about what he talks about. And I think that's really important for our work as well, like you with your fitness, me with my work, because not to care about what anyone else thinks, right? Just go with what you believe, preach what you believe. And at the end of the day, you will find your following in whatever it is that you're trying to talk about. Because I'm sure the clients that work with you 100% believe in you and your methodology, right?
yeah.
I always find that quite fascinating how people side with certain people's point of views. So yeah, Jordan Peterson's another guy who I've been watching. So that's really cool. But when you went to see him, what did you think? What were your first impressions?
Honestly, so basically, like from what I gather on his tour,
Yeah,
he has a bunch of chapters in it, and like he had X amount of legs of this tour, and he was just doing a chapter. And I hadn't really read the book. I just watched a few YouTube videos,
yeah,
and like, I mean, I'm in Cambridge, so like normally you have to go. Oh well, I'm like half an hour from Cambridge, but normally if you want to go see anything mildly interesting, you have to go all the way to London. It's like, yeah, so just I saw something pop up on Facebook that this guy was coming. I'm like, oh, do you know what, I'm just gonna go check it out. And honestly, he did the chapter on religion, and it
mm,
was like intellectually it was way above me, and it was about religion, and I was just like, and nah, I just didn't really get much from it, to be honest. So yeah, it weren't really
yeah,
for me. But I like you say about passion. Passion is infectious. Like you
mm,
could talk to anyone about anything, and if you were passionate about it, um, I don't know how true this is, but I like. Have you heard of? It's called like state transference. So like
no,
whoever's state or energy is the strongest in an interaction will like overwhelm it.
yeah,
So I don't know how true this is, but I actually genuinely believe it. It's just like, so if you're incredibly passionate, that passion is gonna like transfer across, and like you're gonna be interested because that person is passionate, and you're gonna be like drawn into it. Um,
mm,
and I've actually seen this a lot as well. Like, um, I deleted Tinder. Like, I never delete Tinder.
oh
Because like,
really?
how else are you even gonna meet someone at the moment? But
Yeah,
I found like, I mean, I'm pretty positive, but like, I'm not as it's not as concrete as it used to be.
right,
So like, I found I was going out with people, and like everyone's struggling this year. So like, but that like their negative energy was taking over the interaction. And I was leaving feeling drained. I never had that before.
yeah,
And I thought about it, like I say, like self-aware, I always self-reflect, and I'm like, man, do I always date girls like this? And it was just like my energy was like so overwhelming in that interaction that like it was just a positive energy like
right,
the whole time. But now because my energy isn't as strong,
yeah,
it just couldn't take over, and it was just like this negative draining experience. Um, so yeah, I I just think passion can be always kind of lead to the other person being interested, even if they don't really know much about the subject matter.
yeah. No, definitely, definitely. Now, before we wrap up, I just want to give an opportunity for you to just let us know a bit more about the work that you're doing online. I know you are on YouTube, as you mentioned. I know you're on Facebook. Recently found out you're on Instagram as well, which is really cool.
Yeah,
I will include all your links at the bottom of this YouTube description so people can connect with you, follow you, and reach out to you about your work. But just remind us of all the social media handles, but I will mention them again underneath.
cool. So basically, on Facebook, I'm Muscles Over Bones. It's a really outdated name that I want to change, but at the moment you'll find me at Muscles Over Bones.
Right.
It's the same on Instagram, Muscles Over Bones, and those two pages,
Yeah.
it's like all the content's aimed at my demographic, women who want to lose weight and tone up, and who aren't fitness freaks. And then this will give you more of an insight into my demographic. I recently started fit toned and vegan on Instagram
Right.
because I'm vegan, but I was putting out some vegan content on the other stuff just because, you know, it's like good healthy recipes and all that. But like basically, someone asked me, they were like, oh, I got a friend who's vegan, they want to like follow you. I told them like you put out really good meals and that, and I'm like, I mean, they can follow me, but honestly, my content's for women who like drink too much wine but still want to be fit rather than vegans.
Yeah.
So I just started up Fit Toned and Vegan. So if you want some plant-based like stuff, that's on there. And then all my personal stuff and my YouTube stuff is Wedits RVM, WEDITS RVM. On Instagram, you'll just get like, I don't even go do anything anymore, so it's just pictures of my hair basically. But on YouTube, it's like health, fitness, and stuff like that. I've been putting a lot of videos out on nutrition, fat loss, and stuff like that really. But so yeah, that's my plug. Looking to develop some online offerings eventually, so yeah, you're not going to get sold to for a little while if you just want to check it out and take some good information in for free.
All right, cool. Sounds good. As I said, I will definitely include all your social media links at the bottom of the description, so everyone who's watching can click on the links, connect with Ross, learn about the work that he does. As I said, I've been following him for a while now, mainly on Facebook, and what I love about his work is that he's always consistent with what he does, and he just tells it how it is. And he's a passionate guy. He believes in what he talks about. So do go check Ross out. Ross, I just want to say thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure connecting with you after a very long time.
I know, too long, man.
It's been ages. Pleasure. It's been ages. But let's stay in touch. It'd be good to keep updated with your work, and I'm sure we'll catch up again very soon.
Yeah, definitely. Cheers for having me, man. Good luck with the channel. No problem, man.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
And you, mate.
Hello, just me again. I wanted to say a massive thank you to you for tuning into this episode. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Ross Morgan. And remember, you can connect with Ross. You can find out more about his work by simply clicking the links that I've included at the bottom of this YouTube description. And also, if you want to get notified when my next video is out, do make sure you hit that subscribe button. I do post here on my YouTube channel every week, including more interviews on my show, the Sabir Bhatti show. So do hit that subscribe button if you want to get notified of those. So thank you once again. It was great having your company. I will catch you again very soon. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.